For 10 solid years, my relatives ridiculed what they called my textile pastime, channeling every available cent toward funding Victoria's legal education. During Marcus's celebration feast for his diploma, I presented him with a mortgage-free home, and the reality of their covert scheme to drain my finances came crashing down around them. This marks the genuine beginning of our tale, and you'll definitely want to stay tuned. Don't forget to subscribe so you can follow this journey to its conclusion. We're always wondering, which corner of the globe are you viewing from right now? Share your location in the comments section. The illness had penetrated my system completely, manifesting as a profound, throbbing chill unrelated to the frigid weather beyond my windows. 3 full days into a severe influenza, cocooned beneath every available blanket, my cell phone began vibrating against the bedside table. The display illuminated with an image of Catherine, my mother. A groan escaped me as I allowed 2 rings to pass before surrendering to answer. My vocal cords produced only a parched rasp. "Nina, darling, you sound absolutely dreadful. Still fighting that bug." Her tone carried brightness, creating stark opposition to the persistent pounding behind my temples. "Yeah, Mom, it's pretty rough. Just trying to rest up. Such unfortunate timing, sweetheart. Listen, I won't monopolize your time. I realize you're occupied with your crafting venture." I grimaced internally. "My enterprise, Mom. It's actually called an enterprise." Certainly. Listen, the reason I'm calling is Victoria's concluding tuition installment comes due on the 1st, and your father Thomas and I find ourselves somewhat financially constrained. You understand how these things happen with real estate levies and that recent valuation increase. Propping myself upward on my elbows, the surroundings started spinning slightly. Constrained? By what amount exactly? Nothing particularly significant, she replied with that airy inflection she employed whenever requesting the impossible. Simply the final payment. $18,000. My breath caught violently. 18? Mother, that's hardly insignificant. That represents an automobile purchase. Nina, please don't dramatize the situation. The brightness vanished from her voice instantly. This concerns your sister's destiny. This is Yale Law School, not some virtual knitting circle. We've all had to make certain compromises. Your father and I refinanced our property. The minimum you could contribute is some financial assistance. I understand your internet boutique doesn't generate substantial income, but surely you can allocate something toward family obligations. There it surfaced, the perpetual dismissal. The modest operation I'd launched from my storage space a decade earlier. The pastime that currently provided employment for 14 individuals, operated from a 25,000 square foot distribution center, and delivered products to 47 nations worldwide. The modest operation my relatives treated as though it were a child's roadside beverage stand. For an entire decade, I'd absorbed this treatment. I'd occupied seats at holiday gatherings where my father Thomas would raise his glass to celebrate our emerging legal champion Victoria, while I received inquiries about whether I continued peddling textiles through the internet. I'd observed my parents deplete their retirement savings, liquidate my grandmother's precious jewelry collection, and mortgage their entire existence to fund Victoria, who consumed their admiration and capital with the serene entitlement of a deity. And me? I existed as Nina, the reserved one, the artistic one, the individual who'd never requested anything. I financed my own journey through community college by working restaurant shifts. I constructed my operation using my own reserves and my own labor. I maintained 80-hour work schedules while they jetted to New Haven to treat Victoria to restaurant meals I knew exceeded their budget. Mother, my voice trembled with a combination of fever and suddenly crystalline fury. I simply cannot produce $18,000 at will. This constituted a falsehood naturally. That sum resided in an account I maintained for incidental expenses, but the principal mattered more. Well, I simply don't know what to suggest, Nina. My mother released a heavy, disappointed exhalation, specifically designed to fracture my heart. It had succeeded for 36 years. Your father faces tremendous stress. I'm genuinely concerned about his cardiovascular health. This final push will carry Victoria across the completion threshold. Then she'll be positioned to support all of us. It represents a family investment. A family investment. That terminology. But I wasn't considered family. I served as the supplementary funding source. I'm sorry, Mother, I cannot comply. I have employee salaries to process, I whispered. The line maintained silence briefly. When she spoke again, her voice resembled fractured ice. I understand. I comprehend the situation perfectly. Well, I hope your health improves, Nina. Some of us are attempting to construct something meaningful. The connection terminated. I threw the device onto the bedding and collapsed against the cushions, my body convulsing. But the fever wasn't causing my chills. The realization struck me that to my relatives, I didn't exist as a daughter. I functioned merely as a credit line they hadn't yet managed to access. The quietness pervading the space after the conversation felt heavier than my sickness. The sharp click of my mother disconnecting reverberated in my consciousness. It represented the sound of a barrier being violently closed, a conclusive, absolute rejection. My refusal transcended simple monetary denial. It constituted a betrayal of the family mythology. Victoria embodied the luminary, and I occupied at best a peripheral role. This day, I'd declined to recite my designated dialogue. My body registered discomfort, yet my mind achieved sudden, agonizing clarity. The illness-induced confusion transformed into a different variety of haze, the murky, disturbing recognition that my mother's communication wasn't desperation in action. It represented expectation in motion. My device vibrated again. A text message materialized from Victoria. Mother mentioned you're withholding assistance. Don't demonstrate selfishness, Nina. My prospects represent the family's prospects. We're all depending on you to make the appropriate choice. Withholding assistance. Selfish. The words carried such arrogance, such absolute absence of self-awareness that laughter nearly escaped me. Victoria, who'd never completed a single day of genuine employment that wasn't a prestigious, compensation-free apprenticeship. Victoria, who continued having her plastic card statements settled by our father, she was labeling me selfish. My thoughts returned to a meal several months earlier, shortly before illness struck. My father, Thomas, an individual who'd only addressed my enterprise with somewhat bemused patronage, had suddenly displayed interest. So, Nina, he'd stated, swirling fermented grapes in his vessel. This digital commerce venture of yours, it's performing adequately, I hear. Surprise registered. It's progressing well, Dad. We're expanding our supplier connections into Argentina. Argentina. And from a legal perspective, how have you structured everything? You're operating as what? A basic sole proprietor? You genuinely should establish some liability safeguards, you understand. He tapped his cranium. As your father, and as someone knowledgeable about finances, I worry about your situation. You're operating in significant waters now, sweetheart. It's simple to become overwhelmed. At that moment, I'd experienced a tiny, pathetic flicker of optimism. He was finally perceiving me. He was expressing concern for me. I'm not a sole proprietor, Dad, I'd responded enthusiastically. I incorporated years back. I'm operating as an S-corporation. His expression tightened momentarily. An S-corporation? Well, impressive for you. But you remain the sole owner, correct? Everything belongs exclusively to you. Essentially, I'd fabricated. It constituted a small instinctive fabrication. The variety you construct when uncertainty exists regarding why questions are being posed. Presently, positioned in my sickbed, that conversation assumed different dimensions. It wasn't genuine interest. It constituted reconnaissance. He wasn't functioning as a father. He was functioning as a financial consultant, searching for vulnerabilities, for assets he could control. He was evaluating my worth for the family investment. Nausea washed through me, unrelated to the influenza. They weren't simply requesting a handout. They were strategizing. They were planning around my success, a success they'd simultaneously ridiculed and coveted. My gaze wandered to a photograph frame on my furniture. It originated from 10 years prior, the day I executed the lease for my initial 600-square-foot storage facility. I was 26, radiating happiness, grasping a key set. I'd transmitted the photograph to my relatives. My mother had responded with generic pleasantry. Victoria just received excellent marks on her initial semester. I'd constructed my company within their shadow. While they celebrated Victoria's every academic achievement, I was mastering search optimization, import regulations, and distribution logistics. While they agonized over her law school submissions, I was negotiating with transportation companies and employing my initial staff member. I'd accomplished everything independently, quietly, persistently, while they gazed directly through my existence. They all assumed I was merely experimenting with yarn, but they'd neglected one crucial element. They'd neglected who I actually was. They assumed I was the malleable, creative daughter. They'd neglected that you cannot construct a multi-million-dollar operation from nothing by demonstrating weakness. You cannot oversee a global supply network by being easily manipulated. You cannot manage personnel and complex budgets by lacking intelligence. I'd remained quiet, certainly, but I hadn't been dormant. I'd been observing. I retrieved my device, my digits trembling slightly. I disregarded Victoria's text. Instead, I navigated to a different contact, my actual financial consultant, a woman named Rebecca, whom I'd employed 5 years earlier, and whom my father possessed zero knowledge about. I typed a message. Rebecca, I'm experiencing concerning intuitions. Can you please very discreetly conduct a comprehensive investigation into my parents' financial circumstances? I need to understand exactly what kind of debt we're discussing. I transmitted it. Then I opened another message. This one directed toward my brother Marcus. Hey Marcus, just reaching out. Are you anticipating your graduation celebration next week? Marcus, the other overlooked one. He was completing his undergraduate degree, a fact almost entirely overshadowed by Victoria's approaching law school completion. His response arrived almost immediately. Hey, Ian. Yeah, I suppose. Mother's predominantly discussing Victoria's apprenticeship opportunity, but thanks for asking. Are you feeling improved? A small, genuine smile touched my expression. Marcus. At least there existed. Marcus. The fury was crystallizing into something colder, harder, something purposeful. My relatives assumed I was their emergency reserve. They were about to discover I was a fortress, and they stood on the exterior. The modest side venture originated from a place of quiet defiance. After completing community college, an accomplishment met with polite indifference from my mother, I found myself back in my childhood sleeping quarters. Victoria, despite being 9 years younger, already occupied the larger room, the one with superior natural lighting, because she required the illumination for studying. I was employed at a meaningless position with a local insurance company, preserving every cent. My relatives viewed it as temporary failure. Just until you locate something legitimate, my father would comment, patting my shoulder. But I wasn't searching for a legitimate position. I was constructing a war fund. My passion centered on artisan textiles, uncommon yarns, hand-colored silks, traditional weaving implements. I cherished the history, the tactile quality, the craftsmanship. I initiated a modest blog reviewing different fibers. Then I commenced selling small kits through online marketplaces. The insurance position financed the initial 70 shipments of merino wool from Uruguay. I stored it in containers beneath my sleeping platform. The year I turned 27, I relocated. My mother, Catherine, was horrified. But you could be conserving so much capital living here, she'd cried. I need the space, Mother, I'd stated, gesturing to the containers filling the garage. For your pastime, she'd scoffed. Nina, you're not a child. It's time to release these recreational activities. Your father and I are attempting to get Victoria into that advanced summer program. We need to be serious. That word. Serious. Victoria, with her debate associations and pre-law organizations, was serious. I, with my growing data sheets, my import authorizations, and my expanding customer base, was recreational. My father, Thomas, was quieter, but in numerous ways more destructive. He was a financial consultant, an individual who constructed his identity on being prudent and wise. When I brought him my first year's tax documents showing a modest but legitimate profit of $35,000, he'd glanced at the paper and sighed. Nina, this is acceptable. It's good supplementary income, but it's not a career. You have no benefits, no retirement plan. The market is unstable. A business like this, it's a whim. One problematic shipment and you're finished. He slid the paper back to me. I'm constructing a portfolio for Victoria, something solid. We're investing in her future presently. That's a sound investment. I never showed him my tax documents again. The subsequent year, I cleared 6 figures. I terminated the insurance position. I employed my first staff member. I executed the lease on that first small warehouse. I transmitted the family a photograph. That was the evening my mother called to celebrate Victoria's 4.0. Isn't it wonderful? Catherine gushed, her voice bubbling. A perfect academic average. At that institution, your father and I are simply bursting with pride. We're taking her to New Haven for the weekend to celebrate. That's wonderful, Mother. Did you see the photograph I sent of the new warehouse? Yes, dear. It looks spacious. Do be cautious with those lease agreements. They can be complicated. Anyway, I must go. Victoria needs a new suit for her recognition dinner. The betrayal wasn't a singular event. It was a decade of 1,000 tiny cuts. It was every generic pleasantry. It was every conversation immediately redirected to Victoria. It was the complete and utter invalidation of my life's work. Catherine, a part-time real estate agent, was obsessed with the appearance of success. A daughter at Yale Law was a status symbol she could leverage at her social club meetings. A daughter selling textiles online was an eccentricity, almost an embarrassment. Thomas was the enabler. He controlled the capital, and he channeled it all in one direction. He viewed Victoria as an extension of his own financial accomplishment, a blue-chip stock guaranteed to pay dividends. He viewed my business as high-risk, low-reward penny stock, and he dismissed it not because it wasn't successful, but because he hadn't chosen it. It existed outside his control. Victoria, for her part, simply believed them. She was the chosen one. She was intelligent, beautiful, and destined for greatness. She genuinely believed she was superior to me in every way. She treated my business with a sort of pitying disdain. It's so adorable, she'd stated once, visiting my warehouse, that you have all these little containers to play with. I was standing in front of a pallet of goods worth more than her entire year's tuition. I just smiled and said, "It keeps me occupied." The influenza finally broke on a Thursday. I awakened feeling weak but clear-headed. My device was vibrating. It was Rebecca, my consultant. "Are you sitting down, Nina?" she asked. "I'm in bed." "What did you find?" "It's problematic," she stated flatly. "Worse than you thought. They refinanced the property 2 years ago. The second mortgage, the interest rate is criminal. They also have 3 high-interest private loans, all taken out in the last 20 months. And Nina, Victoria co-signed them." "What?" "She's on the hook. All of it is tied to her future earning potential. Your parents leveraged her, and she allowed them. The total debt, not including the primary mortgage, is just over $520,000. The final tuition payment they asked you for? It wasn't for tuition. That's already settled. It's to service the debt on the other loans. They're in a spiral, Nina. They're robbing Peter to pay Paul." I closed my eyes. They hadn't just been constrained. They had been lying. "And Nina?" Rebecca said, her voice softer. "I looked at your father's advisory registration. He was censured by the board 6 years ago for making unsuitable recommendations to elderly clients. He's not just a bad father. He's a bad consultant." My blood ran cold. This wasn't just familial favoritism. This was a pattern. My father, the prudent one, was a desperate man. And desperate men, I knew, did desperate things. Marcus's graduation celebration was in 3 days. The conversation my father wanted to have was no longer a question. It was an inevitability. They weren't just planning to ask me for help. They were planning to obtain it one way or another. The turning point was no longer a decision. It was a necessity. I wasn't just protecting my enterprise anymore. I was protecting myself from a predator. And he just happened to be my father. The sickness had passed, leaving behind a cold, hard clarity. The hurt that had defined my relationship with my relatives for 2 decades was gone, burned away by the fever and the facts. In its place was a chilling, calculating anger. I wasn't a daughter they had overlooked. I was a resource they had miscalculated. Rebecca's revelation about my father's censure cemented it. He wasn't just proud of Victoria. He was using her as cover for his own financial failures. He had likely been bleeding his own clients dry with bad advice. And now that well was running dry. He was turning to his own family. He had sunk everything into Victoria, not as an investment, but as a gamble, a high-stakes bet to save his own skin. And when her future earnings weren't materializing fast enough, he had turned his gaze to me. His probing questions at dinner, his advice to keep my business simple, it was all an attempt to keep me small, to keep my assets liquid and understandable, so he could eventually advise me to move them into a fund he controlled. He thought I was a sole proprietor. He thought I was his naive, creative daughter who didn't understand the real world of finance. He had no idea. The clever trap, as it were, wasn't something I had set for him. It was something I had built for myself years ago to protect my life's work from the unknown. On the advice of Rebecca, not my father, I had structured my company with surgical precision. Nina's Artisans LLC was not just an S corporation. It was an S corporation whose majority shares, 78% of the entire company, were held by the NMR Legacy Trust, an irrevocable trust. I was the trustee and the primary beneficiary, but I could not, even if I wanted to, simply dissolve it or hand over its assets. It was a fortress designed to protect the company from creditors, lawsuits, and as it turned out, from greedy family members. My father couldn't absorb my company. He couldn't manage its profits. He couldn't touch a single thread of Argentinian yarn. The remaining 22% of the shares were in my personal portfolio, alongside my other investments, a portfolio my father had never seen. The phone call I had been dreading finally came that afternoon. It was my father. His voice was all honey and concern. "Nina, sweetheart, I heard you were under the weather. Feeling improved, I hope." "Much better, Dad. Thanks for asking." "Wonderful, wonderful. Listen, your mother and I were thinking. Marcus's graduation is on Saturday, and we're all so proud. But I'd love to have a little discussion with you before that. Just us, to discuss the future. The future. The family investment. Victoria's loans. It was all scripted. "The future?" I asked, keeping my voice light. "What about it?" "Well, just family finances. You know, you've done so well with your enterprise, and Victoria is about to graduate. It's time we all got on the same page as a family. Consolidate our strengths. I have an idea for a new family fund that I think could be very beneficial for all of us. You, me, your sister, even Marcus. A family fund managed by him." I felt a chill. He was going to propose I liquidate my pastime and pour the cash into his new desperate venture, which would of course be used to pay off Victoria's debts. "Dad, that sounds interesting, but I'm swamped this week, catching up from being sick." This was my new strategy. No more small lies, just inconvenient truths. My logistics manager is on vacation, and I'm handling the new import tariffs myself. A beat of silence. "Tariffs? Well, surely you can spare an hour for your father. This is important, Nina. It's about your sister. Everything is about Victoria," I said, and the words were out before I could stop them. They weren't angry. They were just exhausted. He sighed, the sound of a patient man dealing with a difficult child. "That's not fair, Nina. We are a family. We support each other. Your sister has worked so hard. Now it's our turn to support her, and in turn, she will support us. That's how it works. I'll text you. We'll find a time." He hung up, not waiting for a reply. The arrogance was breathtaking. He still believed he was in control. I hung up and immediately called my personal realtor, Stephen. "Hi, it's Nina. I need to do something. I need to buy a property, all cash, and I need to do it by Friday." "Nina, that's aggressive." "Where?" "It's for my brother Marcus. He just got a position at that new tech incubator downtown. I need a 1-bedroom or a studio condominium, something within walking distance. And I need the deed in his name only, in my hand by Saturday morning." Stephen, who had seen my accounts grow from 5 figures to 8, didn't question my motives. He just said, I have 3 listings that fit the bill. I'll send them to you in 10 minutes. We can wire the money today and have the keys by tomorrow. Perfect, I said. And Stephen, my name is not to appear on any of the public-facing documents, just his. This is a gift. I hung up and looked at the list of properties. I picked one, a beautiful modern condominium with floor-to-ceiling windows. I wired $560,000 from my personal investment account, the 22% my father didn't know existed. The investigation was over. My father's plan was clear. My mother's complicity was clear. Victoria's entitlement was clear. But my plan was just beginning. They wanted to discuss a family investment. Fine, we would. But we would do it on my terms, at my chosen time. Marcus's graduation celebration. They had planned to use the dinner as a prelude to my financial absorption. Instead, I would use it as the stage for my liberation. They had forgotten about Marcus. They had forgotten about me. They were about to get a very expensive reminder. My father, true to his word, was relentless. He texted me, "Good morning, Nina. Do you have time for that discussion today?" He called me at lunch. "Just checking in, sweetheart. Let's lock down a time." He was a dog with a bone, a salesman on the scent of a commission. His desperation was rolling off him in waves, thinly veiled by his paternal just-looking-out-for-you tone. I knew I couldn't put him off until the dinner. He was too agitated. He would corner me, or worse, cause a scene. I needed to control the narrative, and that meant meeting him, but on my terms. I needed to shatter his confidence just enough to make him unsteady before the main event. I finally agreed to meet him at his office on Friday afternoon, the day before the graduation celebration. "I can give you 30 minutes, Dad," I said on the phone. "I have to be at the warehouse by 4 to sign for a freight delivery." "Wonderful. See, that's my girl," he said, relieved. I walked into his office, a space I'd always found intimidating. It was all dark wood, leather-bound books he'd never read, and framed photos of Victoria. Victoria at her debate championship. Victoria in her prep school uniform. Victoria at her Yale acceptance day. There was one small, dusty photo of Marcus and me at a pumpkin patch, circa 2001. "Nina, you look wonderful." "Much better," he said, closing the door. He sat behind his large desk, steepling his fingers, the picture of a wise financial guru. "I'm feeling better, thanks." I didn't sit. I stood, my purse on my shoulder, giving the distinct impression I was ready to leave. Good. Good. So, this family fund I mentioned. He launched into his pitch. It was full of buzzwords. Synergy, leveraging assets, multi-generational wealth, securing the family legacy. It was a practiced, polished speech, the same one he had probably given to those elderly clients he'd swindled. The plan was exactly as I'd suspected. He proposed that I invest my company's excess profits into this new fund, which he would manage for a very small family fee, of course, he added with a wink. This fund would then strategically allocate capital to pressing family needs. "What needs, Dad?" I asked, my voice flat. "Well, naturally, our first priority is to eliminate the associated debts from Victoria's education. It's a heavy burden, Nina, and you've been so fortunate with your business. It's only right that you help carry that burden. We are a family, after all. Your success is our success." There it was. "Your success is our success. So you want me to give you my profit so you can pay off Victoria's loans?" I clarified. He winced at the bluntness. "It's not. It's an investment, Nina. An investment in your sister. When she's a full partner, she'll be making 7 figures. The return will be astronomical for all of us." "I see." I let the silence hang in the air. He was smiling, waiting for me to agree, to be the good, pliable daughter. "That's an interesting idea, Dad," I said, walking closer to his desk. "But there's a problem." His smile faltered. "A problem? My business isn't a sole proprietorship like you thought." I watched his eyes. "It's an S corporation, and my business isn't really mine to invest." The color drained from his face. "What? What do you mean? Of course it's yours." "No, not really. I said, almost conversationally. 78% of my company's shares have been held in the NMR Legacy Trust for the last 5 years. I'm the trustee, but I can't just liquidate the assets and give them to you. The trust's charter is very specific. It's to ensure the long-term health and growth of the company. Paying off personal loans for a family member? That's not on the list. He stared at me. The mask of the wise father was gone. In his eyes, I saw the man who had been censured by the board. The gambler. A trust? He stammered. You set up an irrevocable trust? Yes, 5 years ago. Who advised you to do that? His voice was rising, cracking with disbelief and fury. You went behind my back? Behind your back? Dad, you're not my financial consultant. You've never been my financial consultant. You told me my business was a whim. You told me to be careful. So I was. I hired a professional. A professional? He stood up, his face reddening. You little fool. You've locked up everything. Do you have any idea what you've done? Your mother and we've been counting on you. Counting on me for what? I shot back, my own voice rising. To be your secret bank? To clean up the mess you made? I know about the second mortgage, Dad. I know about the private loans. I know you're in over your head. He looked as if I had slapped him. How? How dare you? You have no right to look into my private affairs. And you have no right to look into mine. I pointed at him. You went through my mail, didn't you? Back when I lived at home. That's how you knew about my revenue. You've been planning this for years. He didn't deny it. His poorly executed threat came next. You will undo this, Nina. You will find a way to break that trust, or I swear I will. I will tell your brother what you've done, how you've abandoned this family. It was so weak, so pathetic, I almost laughed. Tell him what? That I protected my life's work from you? That I refused to be your bailout? You think I'm the one who looks bad in that story? I turned and walked to the door. I have to go, Dad. I have a delivery to sign for. A real one. From Argentina. I opened the door. I'll see you, Mother and Victoria, at Marcus's dinner tomorrow. We should all be there to celebrate him, don't you think? I left him standing in his office, his grand plan shattered, his face a mask of apoplectic rage. He was a fraud, and now he knew that I knew. The first shot had been fired. The explosion I had detonated in my father's office sent shrapnel flying through the family communication lines. I had barely gotten back to my warehouse, my hand still shaking on the steering wheel, before my phone lit up. It was my mother. I let it go to voicemail. A text message immediately followed. Nina, your father just called me. I am disgusted. Absolutely disgusted by your selfishness. Call me this instant. I silenced my phone and threw it in my desk drawer. I had a business to run. For the next 3 hours, I focused on my work. I checked the manifest for the Argentinian wool. I approved a new marketing campaign, and I reviewed the third quarter projections. Every spreadsheet I read, every number I crunched, felt like another brick in the fortress I had built. My work, the pastime they'd mocked, was my sanctuary. When I finally pulled my phone from the drawer, it was a minefield. 3 missed calls from Mother, 2 missed calls from Dad, and 1 from Victoria. There was a long, rambling voicemail from my mother, a masterwork of emotional manipulation. It veered wildly from tearful pleading. How could you do this to your father? He's so stressed, his heart. To bitter accusations. After all we gave you. We let you live in our house for 2 years. You ungrateful child. It was a performance, and for the first time in my life, I felt nothing but pity. She was so desperate to maintain the illusion of the perfect family, she was willing to sacrifice me to do it. Then I listened to Victoria's. It was not a performance. It was a declaration of war. Nina, I don't know what kind of sick, jealous game you're playing, but you need to stop it. Dad said you've hidden all your money in some legal thing. You're just jealous. You're jealous that I'm a success. You're jealous that Mother and Dad are proud of me. You're just a bitter old maid with a stupid, worthless pastime, and you're trying to ruin my life because you have nothing. She hung up with a click. A stupid, worthless pastime. I saved the voicemail. The case was built. The manipulation, the entitlement, the outright theft they had been planning. It was all out in the open. They were no longer hiding behind smiles and fatherly advice. This was who they really were. A desperate man, a hysterical enabler, and a spoiled, vicious child. My phone rang again. This time the name on the screen made my heart ache. Marcus. I answered immediately. "Hey, Nina, what is going on?" His voice was small, confused. He was at his apartment near his college, probably packing for the weekend. Mother just called me. She was crying, like really crying. She said you and Dad had a huge fight, and that you're refusing to help the family. She said you're hoarding your money and turning your back on Victoria. I don't get it. I thought your shop was just, a little side thing. A little side thing. I finished for him, my voice gentle. "Yeah," he said, embarrassed. "Is that not true?" This was the part that hurt. Marcus wasn't malicious. He was just collateral damage. He had been fed the same narrative I had, only he had no reason to doubt it. He was the other one they overlooked. The quiet, agreeable son, who got decent grades and didn't cause any trouble. He was the audience in their grand play, and he believed it all. "Marcus," I said, leaning my head against my office window, "it's complicated, but it's not what they're telling you. They're in trouble, bad trouble, and they were planning on using my money to fix it. Money I earned. They didn't ask me, Marcus. They expected me, and when I told them they couldn't have it, they broke." He was silent for a long time. "They're always like this about Victoria," he finally whispered, like she's the only one that matters. "I know. Are you okay, En?" That simple question, "Are you okay?" was something my parents or sister had not asked me in years. It broke something loose in me. "I am now," I said, my voice thick. "Listen, about the dinner tomorrow. It's probably going to be tense, but it's your graduation. I want you to know that I am so, so proud of you. No matter what happens, I want you to remember that. Thanks, En. That means a lot. I'll see you tomorrow, okay? And Em, wear a nice suit. It's a big night. Okay?" he said. "See you tomorrow." I hung up, my resolve now absolute. My clever trap was no longer just about defending myself. It was about showing Marcus, the only person in my family who was still reachable, what real support looked like. It wasn't about leveraging his future or sinking him into debt. It was about giving him a foundation. No strings attached. The final piece of my plan clicked into place. I had the deed. I had the voicemails. I had the facts from Rebecca. And I had a family that was walking into an ambush of their own making. They were expecting a cowed, guilt-ridden daughter to show up at that dinner, ready to negotiate. They were about to meet the CEO. The restaurant was my mother's choice, of course. It was offensively expensive. All dark wood, hushed waiters, and chandeliers that dripped crystal. It was a stage, a place you went to perform success. My father looked pale and stressed, tugging at his collar. My mother was overcompensating, her smile brittle and bright, her voice loud as she gushed to the server about my son, the graduate. And Victoria? Victoria was magnificent in her arrogance. She was dressed in a sleek black dress that probably cost 3 months of my first year's salary. She looked at me with open contempt, a little smirk playing on her lips. She thought she had won. She thought the combination of my father's anger and my mother's tears would have broken me, that I would show up ready to surrender. Marcus, bless him, looked handsome in his new suit, but deeply uncomfortable. He kept glancing between me and our parents, sensing the static in the air. I remained calm. I was pleasant. I ordered a sparkling water and complimented Marcus on his suit. This threw them off. My mother kept trying to catch my eye with a look of deep pain and disappointment. My father refused to look at me at all. "Well," my mother said, raising her champagne flute, "a toast to our brilliant son, Marcus. We are so, so proud of his achievements. And of course, to our brilliant Victoria, who is about to take the world by storm." Marcus's smile wavered. Even his toast was co-opted. We all clinked glasses, And my mother continued, setting her glass down and fixing me with a hard stare. To family, and to remembering what's important, to supporting each other no matter what. Because in the end, family is the only thing that matters. It was a warning, a threat wrapped in a greeting card. "You're so right, Mother," I said, my voice calm and clear. The table went quiet. Family is what matters, supporting each other, celebrating each other's achievements, all of them. I turned to my brother. "Marcus, I am so incredibly proud of you. I know you've been so worried about what comes next, about getting a position, about the housing market, about having to move back home." Marcus blushed and looked down. It's a lot, En. "Well," I said. I reached down to the briefcase I had placed by my chair. I pulled out a sleek black leather portfolio. I wanted to make sure you could focus on your new position without worrying about all that, so I took care of it. I slid the portfolio across the table to him. "What? What is this?" he stammered. "Happy graduation, Em. It's the deed to a condominium 2 blocks from your new office. It's in your name, and it's paid in full." Time stopped. Marcus's hand reaching for the portfolio froze. He just stared at it, his mouth slightly open. Victoria, who had been sipping her champagne, sputtered. You what?" My mother's proud, brittle smile dissolved. It didn't just fade, it collapsed, her face sagging into a mask of pure, unadulterated shock. My father went sheet white. His eyes darted from the portfolio to my face. He did a frantic, silent calculation, the numbers spinning behind his eyes. He understood. He understood the amount of money I had just given away. Money that wasn't in the trust. Money he'd had no idea existed. He understood in that single instant the true, vast scale of the wealth he had tried to steal. He leaned across the table, his voice a low, furious hiss that only I could hear. "You weren't supposed to do this. That money, we were counting on that for Victoria's loans. The title line, the thesis, the entire truth of my life, whispered by a desperate, beaten man." I didn't whisper back. My voice was level, not loud, but it cut through the restaurant's quiet murmur like a knife. Every person at that table, and the 2 tables next to us, heard every word. "What money, Dad?" I asked, looking him dead in the eye. "My little side venture money? The textile pastime you all ridiculed for 10 years? I turned my gaze to my mother and sister, who were both staring at me in horror. "For a decade, you 2 have mocked me. You called my company a joke. You called me a bitter old maid with a stupid pastime. You thought I was a failure." I leaned forward. "Well, that joke did 8 figures in revenue last year. That pastime employs 14 people. That pastime just bought Marcus a $560,000 condominium in cash, with money you didn't even know I had." I turned back to my father. His face was gray. "You weren't counting on my money, Dad. You were planning to steal it. You ran your own finances into the ground chasing her dream." I gestured to Victoria, who looked like she was going to be sick. "You refinanced your property. You took out loans you couldn't pay. You're drowning. And you saw me as your secret bailout." I looked at all 3 of them, this tribunal of jealousy and greed. The family investment wasn't Victoria. It was me. And you just lost everything. Marcus, who had been frozen, finally opened the portfolio. He stared at the deed, at his name, at the address. He looked up, his eyes shining with tears. He looked at my parents, his expression hardening as my words sank in. "Is that true?" he asked them, his voice shaking. "You were going to steal from her?" My mother opened her mouth, but no sound came out. My father just stared at me with pure, unadulterated hatred. Victoria was the one who broke. "She owes us," she shrieked, pointing a trembling finger at me. "She had it all, and she just hid it." "I didn't hide it, Victoria," I said, standing up. "I earned it. While you were investing in your future, I was building mine. You just never bothered to look. The public humiliation was total. It was silent, complete, and devastating." Marcus stood up, clutching the portfolio to his chest. He looked at my parents, then at me, and he made his choice. "I need some air," Marcus said, his voice raw. He looked at our parents, his expression one I'd never seen from him before. Not anger, but a deep, profound disappointment that was far worse. He turned and walked out of the restaurant, not looking back. My mother started to get up. "Marcus." "Wait, sweetheart." I put my hand on her arm and she flinched. "Leave him alone, Mother. You've done enough." I dropped a few hundred in bills on the table, more than enough to cover the champagne and appetizers they'd ordered. "This is the last dollar you will ever get from me." My father was silent, a man carved from stone. Victoria was crying, not with sadness, but with rage. "You've ruined everything," she hissed at me. "No, Victoria," I said, pulling my purse onto my shoulder. "You all did this yourselves. You just thought I would be the one to pay the bill." I walked out of the restaurant, leaving the three of them sitting in the wreckage of their grand plan. I found Marcus on the sidewalk, leaning against a pillar, staring at the deed in his hands. "Nina," he said, his voice thick. "A condominium paid in full." I don't know what to say. "You don't have to say anything," I said, standing next to him. "It's yours. Congratulations, Marcus. You earned it." "They really did that?" he asked, looking at me. "All that about your money? About Victoria's loans they did?" I took a deep breath. "I have the voicemails if you want to hear them." He shook his head, a look of disgust on his face. "I don't. I believe you. All those years, God, I was so stupid. I just believed it. That you were just, playing with yarn." "Playing with yarn," I finished. We shared a small, sad smile. "I'm going with you," he said, straightening up. He slid the portfolio into his suit jacket. "I'm not going back in there. I don't think I can ever go back." He walked back into the restaurant's entryway, where our parents and Victoria were now standing, clearly in the middle of a furious whispered argument. Marcus walked right past them to the coat check, retrieved his coat, and walked back out, holding the door for me. He didn't say a word to them. The drive to my apartment was quiet. Marcus just stared out the window. When we got inside, he finally let it all out. He cried, and I held him. My little brother, the other one they'd left behind. The aftermath was swift and brutal. Victoria's student loans, the ones my parents had co-signed and the ones she had taken herself, all came due within 6 months of her graduation. Without my bailout, they defaulted. My father Thomas was ruined. The loan companies went after his assets, and his censure became a public suspension when his creditors started digging. He lost his advisory license. My mother Catherine was forced to sell their house, the house I grew up in, at a massive loss, just to cover a fraction of the debt. They moved into a small, bleak rental apartment across town. Catherine's social life evaporated. The prestige she had built her life on was gone. Victoria, our golden child, had a rude awakening. With a mountain of non-dischargeable debt and a co-signing credit history that was now radioactive, she couldn't get a loan for a vehicle, let alone an apartment. The high-powered corporate law firms she dreamed of wouldn't touch her. She was forced to take a grueling, low-paying public defender position in a different city just to make the minimum payments that would haunt her for the rest of her life. The family investment had yielded nothing but ruin. And me? I helped Marcus move into his new condominium. I used my textile money to invest in a small software startup idea he had, and my business network to connect him with the right people. His idea took off. He was happy. He was free. Months later, I was sitting in my real office, the big, bright corner office of my new, larger warehouse. I was looking over a design for a new line of silks from Japan. Marcus stopped by with coffee just to say hi. "How's it going, boss?" He joked. "It's going well, Em." I smiled. "It's going really well." My phone buzzed. It was a text from a number I didn't recognize. "Nina, it's your mother. Your father is sick. You need to help us." I looked at the message for a long moment. Then I deleted it, blocked the number, and went back to work. I felt no anger, no sadness. For the first time in my life, I just felt peace. The books were balanced. The debt was paid, just not by me.